Hello, I have a question. Why is homelessness still a thing in the 21st century? Why is it a case that there are still genuinely homeless people that need to be put in hostels such as the ones that we have here? We have 3 that I'm aware of in the Doncaster town centre, and there's another one, I believe, somewhere abouts in Doncaster. So that's 4 that I know of, that are places that people can go to stay at. But I only know of 2 of the 4 for a fact, that allow you to be able to stay in them all day and all night if you want to and not go out. I have lived in one of those hostels twice myself when I was younger, like in my late teens, early 20s. I stayed in one of these hostels in Doncaster, and you didn't have to be out of the building by a certain time. The amount of money that you had to pay to them, or that was being paid to them, wasn't an extortionate amount of money, and etc. And I suppose that throughout certain points in my life I have been classed as homeless, no fixed abode, by having stayed in these hostels. When I returned from Barnsley, where I was staying, trying to be able to keep my youngest son, I was again classed as homeless, and my situation was somewhat different. I was put in a bed and breakfast with people from all different backgrounds. Some people that was to do with, like, that had problems with drug abuse or alcohol, etc. And obviously we were all kind of put into the same bed and breakfast regardless of the reason why we were homeless. The fact that there is a larger amount of homeless people, genuinely homeless people. I'm not talking about the people that make themselves look homeless so they can beg for money off you, etc. I'm talking about the genuinely homeless people that genuinely you will see have sleeping bags and be genuinely sleeping behind bins and stuff, in alleyways. They used to be able to sleep in shop doorways or bank doorways and stuff like that. In this day and age, we are in the 21st century. It is 2018. At this point, the fact that there are genuinely homeless people, and there are people that are helping these genuinely homeless people. There's homeless meals that are run at local community centres. I know for a fact that at one point, until it became unsustainable, that there was a food bank at the centre that I go to. There are other food banks, there are other homeless meals. There's one at least every day of the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, even Sunday. You can go somewhere and get something to eat. There's a cafe that's being set up, that's like got the people from the it's got one of the people that was responsible for organising Doncaster Tent City. Now, these kinds of things were supposed to be able to show to the council that there are genuinely homeless people that genuinely have nowhere to go, that aren't just beggars that are scrounging for money so they can get drugs or alcohol, things like that. These are genuinely homeless people, like not people like me that just returned from staying somewhere in Barnsley, or returned from a relationship breakup, etc., and had nowhere to go and were like staying with family or in other temporary accommodation. Genuinely homeless people that are out there. It's a freezing cold February night in 2018. There's been rather reports that say that there's been risk of snow, and there's been rain, and there's been all kinds of bad weather as the conditions get worse with global warming, etc. Right? That these people have had to sleep out in. And what is the solution from the government? They are building homes that people have Help to Buy schemes. This is why I mentioned this in my Dear Doncaster Council video. A Help to Buy scheme will only help people that have the money to be able to afford to pay like £80 a week into, like, there's houses down Hyde Park near where my mum used to live that have been built, and other homes that have been built like down Checker Road and stuff like that. These are not social housing. Like the housing association that I live in and council properties, that's social housing, but social housing has become like a bad thing now. There isn't actually any genuine social housing. For my property that I live in, it's close to £80 a week as it is to live here. That's because there's a service charge for like the gardeners and the maintenance of everything outside of my flat, right? I'm very lucky to have not only had a 3-bedroom flat, even when I had a partner there was only 1 bedroom being occupied, and when the under occupancy charge came in, I now have to pay the council back money that the government decided that I needed to pay for 2 spare rooms that I never asked for, because when I returned from where I was staying in Barnsley, trying to keep my son, I was homeless and I had nowhere else to go. Because if I'd gone and stayed at my mum's, I wouldn't have been classed as homeless. So basically, I was returned from Barnsley straight to the homeless section that used to be down East Gate, and left there until the council workers put me in this bed and breakfast and stuff. And that was me being lucky with my situation, despite the fact that I was with people that could harm me, and I was already in a vulnerable state because of my situation that happened when I returned from Barnsley. So I empathise very much with those people that are out in that freezing cold. I've got a home that I can return to and get out of the cold, and I've got somewhere that I can get warm to be able to get rid of this cold that I've got. They can't. And like the stigma that they all turn to drugs and alcohol, right? Sometimes it's a coping mechanism for the people that are genuinely homeless, and there's people out there that run homeless places that get meal tokens and stuff for a cafe and have a shop where people can get essentials and stuff, clothing that they need, or if they do get a home, other things that you need to be able to have a home, like to be able to keep your clothes clean and tidy and stuff like that. So the fact that in this day and age, in this town and in other parts of Yorkshire and in other parts of our so-called great country, there's still genuinely homeless people because no one is actually building social housing or using empty buildings. We have empty buildings. We've got big building that was originally built to be part of a retail park in the Waterdale in Doncaster that could be turned into homes for people. We've got empty shops in other parts of Waterdale that could be turned into more flats for people. You could do something. You could have done something with a lot of the empty buildings here in Doncaster, and the fact that nobody is, and all they've done is build homes for Help to Buy for people that can afford to do that. This is one of the things that I get passionate about, right? No one needs to be homeless, regardless of their background. No one needs to be homeless. We live in a multicultural society, and you see people from all walks of life, all creeds, races, religions, everything, right, that are on the streets, that have nowhere to go, that get put in hostels that kick them out at 6 o'clock in the morning, and they have to stay out all day, and they can't go back, and they get paid by the council, whether a payment is made from the council or whomever, maybe by the individual themselves. You've got other councils that are going to have to implement fines to homeless people. How the heck is someone going to pay £100 fine when they barely can probably scrape together 100 pence to be able to get a cup of tea or a cup of coffee or a sandwich, right? And these councils are being told to implement fines on homeless people, right? And if you go to prison, you still have that fine to pay. Say if I did something and they said I had to pay a fine and I got sent to prison for like 3 months, 6 months or whatever, I'd still have the fine to pay when I got out. They don't cancel the fine off because you went to prison. You get the prison sentence and the fine. And that's what's going to happen to homeless people. And yes, maybe it's a roof over their head for 6 months, whatever, but then they still have to go back out to nowhere. Like, there's no, like, halfway house or hostel or anything that's going to take them in. What about these women that are fleeing domestic violence that have nowhere to go, that once they do escape, where have they got to escape to? There's no refuges now. Nothing. There's nothing, nowhere for them to go. So they're going to be stuck being in the same situation of being in a bed and breakfast with people from different walks of life that might be suffering drug withdrawal or alcohol withdrawal and might threaten these vulnerable women who already have fled from violence and abuse. Right, this is why we need to build more social housing. This is why we're out on the street and we have these cafes and these homeless meals and things like that to help people, because if it's not for people like us being out on the street telling those people that are in their offices in the council and stuff, we need this, we need that, right, we will win and there will be a better society and everybody will have homes and fair amount of money to live on and everything, when everybody starts burying their head in the sand and realise this homeless situation, the situation for women and yes men that are fleeing domestic abuse, if you've got nowhere to go, no like home, and you've got children that you want to see as well, you'll not be able to see those children because you don't have a home that you can take them to. There's a lot of things that are wrong in Doncaster. The NHS is being dismantled, which is something that I forgot to mention in my previous video. Women's aid is being dismantled and people from within are attacking workers who have worked for the regional women's aid for a long time, etc. So these services have been dismantled from within, and homeless people and vulnerable adults and vulnerable children are being failed left, right and centre, and this is why I make videos like this, because I am passionate enough to say this needs to change. Our country needs to change. It's not just about what's happening in other countries with the changes they need to make. Our government needs to actually listen, because we're the ones who put them in power in the first place, and then it goes to their head and they think, oh, we're in power now, we don't need to listen until the next election comes along. You need to listen now on a local level and on a national level to us, because we're the ones who put you there, we're the ones who built this country. Without us, you are nothing.